You ever have one of those moments that split your life into before and after? Yeah, that's what happened to me the morning my son started to walk for the very first time, after nearly a decade of heartbreak, secrets, and betrayal in a house so big you'd think all the pain would get lost somewhere in the marble halls. But nope, it just echoes louder. You know what I mean? I'm not here to tell you some fairy tale where money solves everything. Trust me, I'd trade every dollar for a real shot at happiness. But let me back up a sec, because none of this makes sense without the mess that came. First, it all started the day Sophie, our housekeeper's little girl, dug up a locket in the old part of our garden. Now, I'd watched my son Ethan stare at that same patch of grass for years. 8 years, to be exact, since the day he was born paralyzed and my world fell apart. Specialists, private jets, every doctor money could buy. Nobody had answers. His spine was fine. Nerves, perfect. But he couldn't move. It's like some invisible hand pressed pause on his life before it even started, and all I could do was watch from behind glass, powerless. Ethan's mom, Claire, died giving birth to him. They called it a complication, but if you ask me, that word's just a band-aid for what you can't explain. The garden grew wild after that, like it was morning too. Maria, our housekeeper, she was more family than staff by then, kept asking if her Sophie could play with Ethan, and I always said no, not because I didn't want it, but because I couldn't stand to see another kid pity my son. But that day, for some reason, I said yes. So there they were, 2 kids chasing sunlight between the weeds, when Sophie starts digging like she's on a mission from God. Next thing I know, she's holding up a tarnished locket, my wife's locket, the one I gave her on our wedding day, the one they told me was buried with her. You ever have your blood run cold? That's what it felt like. Sophie handed it to Ethan, and he just stared at it like it might bite him. I rushed outside, mud everywhere, heart pounding, because I just knew there was more buried out there than just old jewelry. Inside that locket, not just our photos, there was a tiny scrap of paper, folded so small it was practically invisible. Claire's handwriting. "Help me, please." That's it. 3 words, and suddenly my whole world tilted sideways. Sophie pointed out the spot she found it, said there was more down there, a box or something. I started digging with my bare hands. Suit be damned, and sure enough, hit a half-rotted shoebox packed full of letters. Dozens, all written by Claire in the months before she died. Those letters, they tore me apart. Claire, terrified, writing that she was being drugged by our family doctor, Dr. Morrison, and that my longtime secretary, Victoria, was in on it. She suspected they were slowly poisoning her, and by the time she figured it out, it was too late. They said she was paranoid, but it was all real. Victoria, who'd worked for me for 15 years, always in the background, making my life run smooth. Turns out she was obsessed. When she realized she couldn't have me, she made sure nobody else could either. And Dr. Morrison, he owed her, had gambling debts she paid off, so he did whatever she wanted, including drugging my wife and, later, my son. All those years, I thought I was going crazy. Why couldn't anyone tell me what was wrong with Ethan? Because they'd been giving him the same muscle, relaxant since birth, hidden in his vitamins. When I confronted Victoria with the letters, gun in my hand, police on the way, she finally snapped. She confessed it all. She'd done it out of love. She said, "Love," as if love is supposed to look like a prison. Victoria and Morrison were arrested. I thought that would be the end, but it was just the beginning of another kind of battle, the one to get Ethan his life back. We took him to the best neurologist in the country, Dr. Chun, and for the first time, I heard something other than "there's nothing we can do." The drugs hadn't ruined his muscles, but they'd blocked the neural pathways that let your brain talk to your body. There was a chance, a small one, to rebuild them with therapy and experimental treatments, but it'd be brutal, painful, slow, and no guarantees. We tried everything. Months passed. Some days, Ethan could wiggle his toes. Other days, he sobbed in frustration. Sometimes I wanted to give up for him. But every time, Sophie was right there, refusing to let him quit. That girl, she wasn't just a side character in all this. Turns out, Maria had been hiding from a violent ex, a genetic researcher, and Sophie was the result of one of his experiments. Enhanced intuition, awareness, just a little different than other kids. Maybe that's why she found the locket. Maybe she saved us all. Even when Dr. Chun wanted to stop the treatments, Ethan and Sophie wouldn't let her. And when I was ready to drag Ethan halfway around the world for some Hail Mary cure, Sophie called me out, said, "Ethan just wanted me to be proud of him, walking or not." That hit me hard. See, I'd been so busy chasing what we lost, I forgot to see what was right in front of me. A brilliant kid who started drawing blueprints for wheelchair-accessible buildings, a son who just wanted to make a difference, legs or no legs. But the biggest twist? A final letter from Victoria, sent before she died of cancer in prison. She confessed to everything, her jealousy, her crimes, but also revealed that Claire fought back, tried to protect Ethan even as she was dying. She also warned that Sophie might be in danger from her biological father, who was still out there somewhere, looking for her. One last secret in a story that just wouldn't stop twisting. Morrison's records gave Dr. Chin exactly what she needed to tailor Ethan's treatment, and suddenly, miracle or science, who can say? Ethan started moving his feet, then his legs, and before long, he was standing for the first time ever, shaking but upright. The day he took his first steps, 9 of them sweaty and stumbling, but real, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. I knelt in front of him, pulled him into my arms, and just wept. I told him what I should have said years ago. He already made me proud, just by being himself. Ethan asked to walk to his mother's grave. So we did, one slow, determined step at a time. With Sophie cheering him on and Maria clutching my arm, he made it all the way there, collapsed in front of the headstone, and told Claire he was okay. I told him about how she'd saved him, even in her last moments. Sophie promised to take care of us, and for the first time, I realized I wasn't just Ethan's dad. I was hers too, if she wanted. So here we are, a strange little family, patched together out of pain and love and the kind of loyalty you can't buy. Sophie calls me dad now. Maria's more than staff. She's a guardian angel. Ethan still fights for every step. But he's found his purpose, designing buildings, dreaming bigger than anyone could have expected. And I finally understand what it means to let go of the past and fight for the future. Sometimes, the worst things bring out the best in people. Sometimes, truth comes crawling out of the mud when you least expect it. And sometimes, hope is just a little girl's hand reaching into the dirt, finding a locket, finding the truth, and saving us all. Now, if you made it this far, I've got a question for you. What would you have done in my shoes? Where do you draw the line between forgiveness and justice, between fighting for what's right and letting go? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear your take on what family, truth, and real redemption mean to you. You know, I always thought closure was something you got all at once, a big, dramatic moment when everything finally makes sense and you can just move on. But I learned it doesn't work that way, not really. The weeks after Ethan walked to his mother's grave were some of the strangest in my life, a mix of hope and anxiety, joy and this gnawing fear that something, or someone, might rip it all away again. I started seeing things differently. Every morning, I'd find Ethan at his desk, bent over his sketchbook, tongue stuck out in concentration, scribbling plans for playgrounds, ramps, bridges with crazy spiral walkways. Sometimes Sophie would lean over his shoulder, pointing at some detail, arguing about colors or shapes. They bickered like siblings, then laughed like best friends, and I caught myself wondering how I ever thought I could do any of this alone. Maria got her old spark back too. She filled the kitchen with the smell of fresh bread, humming under her breath, sneaking extra cookies to Sophie when she thought I wasn't looking. Sometimes I'd catch her watching Ethan and Sophie together, eyes shining, lips pressed tight, as if she was holding some secret gratitude the world would never quite understand. But you can't outrun the past forever, can you? A couple months after Ethan's breakthrough, I got a call from Detective Harrison. Sophie's father had resurfaced. The man was still obsessed with his research, hunting for Sophie, convinced she was proof of his genius. Harrison said not to panic, but I could hear the worry in his voice. Suddenly, the house felt smaller, shadows longer, like every creak in the night might be a threat creeping closer. I doubled security, put cameras on every entrance, and made sure Maria and Sophie never walked home from school alone. For the first time, I realized protecting this family wasn't just about money or willpower. It was about being present, being ready every single day. And maybe that was the real test Claire had left me. Amid all that, Ethan's therapy hit another wall. After the initial miracle, progress slowed, sometimes stopped altogether. Some mornings he'd wake up and the pain would be so bad he couldn't get out of bed. Dr. Chin warned us that setbacks were normal, but I saw the doubt eating at my son. This fear that the progress he'd made was just a fluke and that everything could slip away. One night, after a particularly rough day, I found Ethan in his room, staring out the window. "You ever think it's just not worth it, Dad?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. I sat down beside him, fighting for words that didn't sound like cliches. "All the time," I said honestly. "But then I remember what it felt like to see you take those first steps. You're tougher than you know, Ethan. Even if you never take another, nobody can take that away." He was quiet for a long time, then asked, "Do you think Mom's proud of me, even if I can't walk like other kids?" "Your mom would be proud if you grew wings and decided to fly instead," I told him. "She'd be proud because you never quit, and because you care about making the world better for other people, not just yourself." Maybe that was the moment it shifted, when Ethan stopped measuring himself by how far he could walk and started focusing on what he could build. He poured himself into his designs, started emailing architects, joining online forums, working with Dr. Chin's connections to advocate for better accessibility. It was like a dam breaking. Once he stopped fighting his body, his mind just took off, stronger than ever. Sophie, of course, stuck by his side through it all. If anything, their friendship grew deeper. I'd catch her sitting with him late at night, drawing, playing chess, sometimes just talking about nothing at all. One day, she came to me, nervous, twisting her hands, and asked if I'd teach her to ride a bike. "Ethan says you're the best teacher," she said. "He said you never let go until he's ready." Man, if that didn't hit me right in the heart. I took her out on the old gravel path, held onto the back of the seat, and ran until she was flying on her own, blonde hair streaming behind her like sunlight. She crashed, of course, scraped her knees and came up laughing, wild and brave, and so full of life it hurt. Meanwhile, the investigation into Victoria and Morrison kept turning up surprises. The medical records Victoria left behind didn't just help Ethan. They gave Dr. Chin new insights into neuroplasticity, experimental therapies, a roadmap that might help kids like my son all over the world. Reporters started calling, asking for interviews, wanting to tell our story. I said no at first, wanting to protect the kids, but Ethan, surprise, surprise, was the one who convinced me otherwise. "Maybe if people hear what happened, they'll look closer at their own lives," he said. "Maybe they'll fight harder, too." So we told our story, or most of it. The part about love and betrayal, about fighting for what you believe in, about finding family in the most unexpected places. The part about hope, even when it feels like a joke. We left out the messier bits, the late-night panic, the fear that never really goes away, the guilt that comes from knowing you missed the warning signs, but maybe that's just life, right? Some things you hold close, some you share. Sophie's father was caught a few weeks later, trying to cross into Canada under a false name. Turns out, his obsession was his undoing. He left a trail of digital footprints a rookie cop could follow. The day we heard the news, Maria cried for the first time in years, real, relieved sobs. We hugged in the kitchen, the whole messy, makeshift family, and for once, I let myself believe we were safe. By Ethan's 10th birthday, the house felt alive in a way it hadn't since Claire died. Friends from therapy, Dr. Chun, Detective Harrison, even the nosy neighbors came by. There was a new ramp in the backyard, designed by Ethan, built by our local contractor, a symbol of everything we'd survived. Sophie made a speech, got all teary, and called Ethan her hero. He blushed, rolled his eyes, but I saw the way he looked at her, like she was the reason he kept fighting. And maybe she was. That night, after everyone went home and the kids were asleep, I sat on the back porch, looking out over the dark garden. The spot where Sophie found Claire's locket was covered in roses, blooming wild. I found myself talking to Claire, not expecting an answer, but needing to say the words anyway. "We made it, Claire. Not the way we planned, not by a long shot. But your boy's okay. Sophie's okay. Maria's safe. I'm learning to breathe again." And maybe that's what closure really is, not a door slamming shut, but a window opening, letting in air and light and the possibility of something better. The wounds don't disappear, The pain doesn't just evaporate, but you get stronger together day by day. So, if you're still here, tell me, what do you think? Makes a family? Is it blood, loyalty, sacrifice, or just refusing to let go when things get hard? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever crawled out of your own darkness or helped someone else find the light, I hope you know that's real courage. That's the kind of story worth living for.